FM Dakar.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Lagos. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa, Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, and around the world at WADR.org. Here are the top stories. Ivorian President Ouattara pardons over 4,000 prisoners as the country commemorates its 66th independence anniversary. Nigeria's Anti-Corruption Commission recommends sanctions against Adeyemi for operating a fake government agency.
Mr. Adeyemi should be prosecuted. 2. Administrative sanctions be imposed on public officers whose acts facilitated the illegal operation of PFIPCs.
Ghana's opposition New Patriotic Party condemns government's handling of protest petition. The Gambia's Electoral Commission pledges credible elections in December despite several objections to the voter registration process.
What we are asking here is to have the raw data of the registration. We as a party have written to the IEC, and the question that they've already provided to us before the deletions, after the deletions, who were deleted.
Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Augustine Bill Coley.
Thank you for being with us. We begin in Côte d'Ivoire, which is celebrating its 66th independence anniversary today. The military parade is taking place at the moment as some foreign heads of state are attending the event in Yopougon, Abidjan, including Gabon's President Brice Oligui Nguema and Guinea, as well as India, as invited countries. On the eve of the celebrations, President Alassane Ouattara addressed the nation, outlining his government's priorities on the economy, social development, and the country's political future. The president also pardoned over 4,000 prisoners convicted of minor offenses. Here's Christopher Aticho with the details.
In a speech lasting several minutes, Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara praised Côte d'Ivoire's economic performance, saying the country's growth momentum would continue under the 2026-2030 National Development Plan. The president also identified the fight against illegal gold mining as a key government priority, noting that the illicit activities cost the state billions of CFA funds and lost revenue each year. On social issues, Ouattara expressed concern over the eviction of residents from the Kumasi-Kompema neighborhood, assuring those affected that justice would be served. On the political front, however, he made only a brief announcement confirming that a new independent electoral commission would soon be established. While many had expected an announcement on political detainees held for several years, the president made no reference in their case. Instead, he granted presidential pardons to more than 4,000 people convicted of minor offenses.
Christopher Aticho with that report, filed by Marcel Arestamblay in Abidjan. Elsewhere in Nigeria, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission is recommending the prosecution of Adeyemi, Director General of the disputed Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council. Presenting its interim report to President Bola Tinubu on Thursday, the Anti-Corruption Agency revealed investigations found that the agency was fraudulently created. The Investment Council controversy came to public attention in early July this year after reports questioned the existence and legitimacy of the council, forcing a presidential probe into the matter. Let's now join WDR's Usma Umar in Abuja.
On the 7th of July, Mr. President, Director ICPC.
According to the Commission, Adeyemi was never appointed by the presidency, and that documents used to establish the disputed Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council, including appointment letters and official papers, were allegedly forged. ICPC Chairman Musa Aliyu says investigation also uncovered weaknesses in government verification systems that were exploited to give the impression that the council was a legitimate government institution. The commission says no federal funds were released to the alleged fake agency, but identified other entities reportedly linked to Adeyemi, including the Federal Capital Territory Investment Promotion Agency and another foreign investment promotion body. Musa Aliyu is chairperson of the ICPC.
Some of the recommendations which we have submitted to Mr. President, one is that Mr. Adeyemi should be prosecuted. 2, administrative sanctions be imposed on public officers whose acts of omission and negligence facilitated the illegal operation of PFIPC/PEAC. Then institutional reform has also been recommended, that there is need for institutional reform so that the internal control of the MDAs can be strengthened to block this kind of illegal activity that happened.
The PFIPC scandal came to the fore after the presidency disowned the council, describing it as a non-existent government agency despite its appearance in the 2026 Appropriation Act with a 1.3 billion naira budget allocation. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Let's take you to the Gambia, where more than 1,600 objections have been filed against entries onto the provincial voter register ahead of the December 2026 presidential election. The objections follow the publication of names added during the supplementary voter registration exercise amid concerns over multiple registrations and the accuracy of the lists. The Independent Electoral Commission says the cases will now go before reversing courts, but the country's main opposition party is demanding greater access to voter data, saying transparency will be critical to public confidence in the electoral process. WDR's Rosa Marrakets in Banjul provides the details.
The complaints were filed after the IEC published the list of voters added during the April and May supplementary registration exercise. IEC chairperson Joseph Koli says revising court will now determine which entrances are maintained and removed.
The Chief Justice has appointed revising court magistrates to hear these cases at the various administrative areas, after which court sittings will commence. The provisional voter register generated during the supplementary voter registration in 2026 will then be added onto the 2021 voter register. This will be done once the revising courts conclude.
The IEC Deputy Chairperson Charna M. Jallo says concerns over changes to the register are not only linked to multiple registrations.
People registered multiple times, that's true. But the issue of edits, reprints, damage cards, if you do the addition, it would tally. And I can assure you, as Vice Chairman of this Commission, that I would not be a party to anything that would impact on the integrity and credibility of the voter register.
Meanwhile, the main opposition, United Democratic Party, is demanding greater transparency over the review process. Dr. Lamin Mane is the Deputy Administrative Secretary of the UDP.
What we are asking here is to have the raw data of the registration. We as a party have written to the IEC, and the question that the registration provided to us before the deletions, after the deletions, who are deleted. Confidence and control are mutually exclusive. They can coexist. And this is what you're trying to do. You give us the data, and you give us the raw data, watch how you went about the deletions, and all that was deleted. And we do our own controls as well. If there are discrepancies, we sit again and talk about it.
The IEC says the final voter register will be produced after the revising courts complete their hearings ahead of the December elections. For WDR, Rosa Marrakets, Banjul.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's take you to Ghana with an update on Thursday's protest by the opposition New Patriotic Party, which concluded at the Jubilee House with the submission of a petition. The march by the NPP was to demand action on what it describes as threats to the country's democracy. While the nation paused to remember victims of the August 6 helicopter crash, hundreds of supporters dressed in black and red took their concerns to the streets. From Accra, Eliplem Awuku reports.
The demonstration began at the forecourt of the Supreme Court, where party supporters gathered with placards and chants calling for constitutional governance, accountability, and respect for democratic principles.
Anything anyone says against this government, then you get arrested.
Government cannot come into office, discontinue cases, and go ahead arresting opponents.
Presenting the petition there, General Secretary of the opposition NPP, Justin Frimpong Kudia, said the demonstration was to draw attention to what the party describes as growing concerns over unequal treatment under the law.
Selective justice is what we are seeing in this country. Members of the New Patriotic Party are being arrested, detained, and arraigned capriciously before the court.
The protesters later marched through some principal streets of Accra to the Jubilee House, the seat of government. At the presidency, however, Minority Leader Alexander Penyo-Marking questioned the government's commitment to addressing their concerns, citing the manner in which the petition was received.
A very senior member of government should have been part of this discourse. We feel that, with great respect to you and without prejudice to your presence, to nominate only you to come amount to disrespecting us as a political party.
Receiving the petition on behalf of government, Presidential staffer Nanaya Jantwa acknowledged the concerns raised and assured the protesters that the document would be forwarded to the appropriate authorities for consideration. The protest also coincided with the memorial of the victims of the August 6th helicopter crash that claimed the lives of 8 individuals, including the Ministers of Defense and Environment. For WADR, Elikle Mauku, Accra.
More on government issues, this time in Benin. Just 2 months after leaving the presidency, Patrice Talon is back at the center of Benin's political landscape as the country's first Senate president. His election on Thursday to lead the newly created upper chamber has reignited debate in Cotonou over the extent of his influence and the role he is expected to play in shaping the country's political future. Francis Boniface explains.
The newly created upper chamber is made up of 25 unelected members, including former presidents, former heads of state institutions, and senior political figures. Under Benin's revised constitution, the Senate wields significant powers, including the authority to suspend or strip political actors of certain political and civic rights. One of the Senate's key responsibilities is to review bills passed by the National Assembly and request a second reading of legislation. As Senate President, Talon will be supported by Vice President Louis Vlavono, who served as Speaker of the National Assembly for the past 7 years. For many observers, Talon's appointment further consolidates the influence he has exercised over Benin's politics since taking office in 2016. Throughout his presidency, he reshaped the country's political landscape through sweeping reforms that critics say marginalized the opposition. Those reforms were reflected in April's elections, where the opposition, led by former President Boni Yayi, failed to secure a single elected seat from village councils to the National Assembly. Ironically, Boni Yayi has now joined the Senate, a move some analysts believe could be aimed at advancing an amnesty law to secure the release of opposition figure Rekia Madugu, who is serving a 20-year prison sentence, and facilitate the return of political exiles, many of whom are aligned with his camp.
Francis Boniface with that report. In Mali, the Supreme Court upholds the conviction of Wadr Felix Sissoko, former Minister of the Economy. His lawyers have announced they will appeal to the African Court of Human and People's Rights to exonerate their client. Sissoko was found guilty of misappropriating public funds in the case of the purchase of a presidential aircraft, which dates back to 2014. Details with Atiwin Mbila.
Wadr Felix Sissoko's lawyers hope that Bamako will respect the decision of the African Court of Human and People's Rights if it orders his release. They also say they want to exonerate the former Malian Minister of Economy, sentenced by the Malian courts to 10 years in prison in his trial concerning the purchase of a presidential plane in 2014. He was found guilty of forgery, use of forged documents, and misappropriation of public funds. The Supreme Court of Mali rejected the appeal to the Court of Cassation. Mali's highest court thus upholds the sentence of Wadr Felix Sissoko, who remains in prison. His lawyers denounced the attack of a fair trial in Mali and are now awaiting the opinion of the African Court of Human and People's Rights. The legal case concerning the presidential plane in Mali continues to generate controversy. It reportedly cost nearly $40 million. The new authorities have raised concerns about irregularities and corruption in the aircraft acquisition process.
Atiwin Mbila with that report. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa, Democracy Radio 94.9 FM and worldwide at wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Ivorian President Ouattara pardons over 4,000 prisoners as the country commemorates its 66th independence anniversary. Nigeria's Anti-Corruption Commission recommends sanctions against Adeyemi for operating a fake government agency. Ghana's opposition New Patriotic Party condemns government's handling of protest petition. The Gambia's Electoral Commission pledges credible elections in December, despite several objections to voter registration process. Still ahead in the news, we have the guest interview and the sports. Please stay with us.
Connecting Ghana to West Africa. This is Nadidi Tete in Accra, and you're listening to WADR 94.9 FM, Dakar.
Thank you for staying with us. The officials, that's 3 officials of Guinea's opposition Liberal Bloc Party in the rural commune of Owende, Keneman, have been arrested and remanded in custody at the Gegedou civil prison. They are accused of being behind a fire that destroyed the residence of the commune's mayor. The allegations have been rejected by the opposition party, which accuses the ruling GMD movement of carrying out a crackdown against its members. Details with Veronique Njai.
The dispute in the rural commune of Gwende, Kenema, between the opposition Liberal Bloc Party and the GMD movement, which forms part of the ruling majority, dates back to the campaign period for the legislative and local elections. Local officials of the Liberal Bloc were accused following a fire that destroyed the office of the newly elected mayor of the commune. 3 party members were subsequently arrested and brought before the prosecutor's office in Gekedu. After questioning, they were remanded in custody and taken to the Gekedu civil prison pending trial. Umar Sano, leader of the Liberal Bloc, has denounced what he describes as harassment, targeting his party officials in Gekedu.
Why would we have any interest in setting the mayor's house on fire? Our members are responsible people. That is the daily work of the Liberal Bloc. We educate and raise awareness among our supporters. This is nothing but political persecution. We may be rivals at the ballot box, but we are not enemies. In any case, everyone involved is a citizen of Uwende Kenema. I see no justification for blaming our party officials every time an incident occurs in the commune.
No responsible.
The mayor of Gwende Kenema, whose office was destroyed in the fire, has not commented on any possible link between the incident and officials of the Liberal Bloc Party in the area. The date for the trial of the 3 Liberal Bloc officials will be set in the coming days by the Gekedu Court of First Instance.
Channel Alpha Ibrahim Mbaldi's report, voiced by Veronique Njai. Liberian President Joseph Boakai has delivered one of his toughest warnings yet to drug traffickers, vowing a relentless crackdown on narcotics networks operating in the country. His remarks come amid growing concern that Liberia is increasingly being used as a transit hub for cocaine and other illicit drugs following a series of major drug seizures and trafficking investigations. President Boakai says his administration will pursue anyone involved in the illegal drug trade. WADR's Ibrahim Parker in Monrovia tells us more.
Liberian President Joseph Boakai says individuals who use the country as a transit point for international drug trafficking will face the full weight of the law. Speaking Thursday during the commissioning of judges into court martials in Monrovia, Boakai described narcotics trafficking as one of Liberia's biggest security threats, warning that the illegal trade fuels organized crime, undermines state institutions, and damages the country's global image.
And let me be clear and absolute. To those who seek to bring illegal drugs into Liberia to destroy the lives of our young people, let them hear me today. To those who believe Liberia can be used as a transit point for international narcotic trafficking, to those who believe that their positions, influence, wealth, we will identify you, we will pursue you, we will find you, and we will deal with you in accordance with the rule of law.
The president's warning comes as Liberia intensifies its fight against drug trafficking following a series of major arrests and seizures linked to suspected transnational criminal networks. Authorities, including the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, say criminal groups are exploiting the country's coastline, ports, and airport as routes for illicit narcotics. Several suspects have been arrested while investigations continue into Wadr trafficking operations. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, our guest this afternoon is Dr. Jonathan Asante Ochoret, political analyst and executive director of the African Institute of Strategic Studies in Ghana. In this interview, he provides analysis of Ghana's opposition New Patriotic Party's protest held on Thursday. He also reveals reasons why opposition figures often use demonstrations to score political points ahead of the NPP's internal elections. Please listen.
The MPP has accused the government of suppressing dissenting voices and undermining democratic institutions. I think it is equally not supported by the fact. We need to look at issues from individual perspective, not in a cumulative fashion as they have tried doing, as it were, to obfuscate the whole, issues, in focus. I do not think that if somebody makes a pronouncement that we are going to kill the president and then chop off the head of his wife, how does this constitute free speech? And if you have a party that is in opposition wishing to come back to power with all the baggage that you have in the past, I expected that they will have to behave responsibly, and whatever these state institutions are doing is not out of law.
The protest was held on a day marking a national tragedy and obviously attracted criticism. How do you assess the political implications of the timing?
Apparently, because it happened to be the 1-year anniversary of that tragedy that occurred, of some ministers and some, military men, they were aware that the president, together with other important government officials, were at UPSA, as it were, to commemorate this particular, tragic occasion. And so it was only Nanaya Jantua who was available to receive that particular petition. It is even encouraging that today, democracy that is under attack, you are able to send your demonstration into the Jubilee House, the seat of government, of which you proscribed when your regime was in power as a security zone. I think that it was quite unfortunate that the demonstration had to coincide with this particular 1-year anniversary of memorial. And I think that it has virtually made the demonstration not to be that popular because people felt that the day that they chose for the demonstration was insensitive. I want to believe that probably they had already announced the date and they had forgotten.
So could this particular demonstration strengthen the NPP's position as a government watchdog?
The demonstration is merely a political, strategy. The timing was very wrong as to whether this will strengthen the NPP's position as a government watchdog. Well, I cannot hazard a guess on that. But so far, I don't think they have been very proactive in terms of proper constructive criticism of the government. It's as if they are in a hurry to criticize, and so they seem to be getting certain things wrong.
Looking ahead, what should be the next steps for government and the NPP after this demonstration?
As to the next steps for the government and then the NPP as a whole, I think that government will have cause to look into the petition, and if there is the need for any pronouncement to be made on that, they can equally go ahead. But I think that as Ghanaians, we need accountability. Anybody who has run the affairs of this country must account to the people. And so it is not a matter of witch hunt. It is a matter of being accountable and ensuring that corruption is nipped in the bud and ensuring that the country is not shortchanged in terms of health resources. For the NPP, I think that they will have to go back, and then re-strategize, because I don't think that the strategy or the strategies that they have been deploying lately have been working.
Dr. Jonathan Ashanti Ochured is a political analyst and executive director of the African Institute of Strategic Studies in Ghana. And in sports, there was last-minute suspense as Africa's women's elite nations navigated their way from the group stages to the quarterfinals of the Total Energies CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2026. The competition surprised package. Malawi rose to the occasion, while former champions Nigeria and South Africa secured a narrow passage. The competition now enters its knockout phase on 8th and 9th August, with the 8 remaining nations bidding for a place in the semi-finals and automatic qualification to the FIFA Women's World Cup Brazil 2027. The quarterfinals get underway on Saturday, 8 August at Stade Moulay Rachid in Casablanca, where Cote d'Ivoire take on Algeria at 6 p.m. GMT. Attending then shifts to Rabat, where hosts Morocco meet South Africa at Stade Moulay Hassan at 9 p.m. The encounter is a repeat of the 2022 Total Energies CAF WAFCON final, won 2-1 by Bayana. Sunday's action begins at Stade Labi Zaulin in Casablanca with a heavyweight clash between Cameroon and record 10-time champions Nigeria. The last quarter-final tie will be played at Stade Al Madina in Rabat, where tournament surprise package Malawi take on Ghana. Malawi have reached the knockout stage on debut and will look to continue their remarkable campaign against the Black Queens. The 4 winners who advance to the semi-finals of the Total Energies CAF WAFCON Morocco 2026 and move one step closer to lifting Africa's most converted women's football trophy. That's the latest in the world of sports. We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. Many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudo Ju for the technical support. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, including X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. I am Augustine Colley. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to